Thank you very much for being here. My name is Marco Gioacchini. I'm the director of the Italian Institute of Culture in Dublin. And it's a great pleasure to have you here for this appointment with the Euroclub, book club of the Unique Cluster in Dublin. This is the fourth edition of this 2022 edition of the Euro Book Club. We are hosting today Paola Peretti, which is a young author, Italian, with her first book, which is La distanza tra me e il ciliegio. Sinéad Mac Aodha will moderate this encounter. I would say a few words about Sinéad, but very few words because she's very known in Ireland. She is the director of the Literature Ireland, which is the national organization for the promotion of Irish literature abroad. She had also worked briefly as a market researcher in the Dublin office of the Italian Trade Organization and promoted a language school in Italy. Also because she had an education in Italy, in Italian also, a postgraduate degree. So I give the floor to Sinéad, and I will come back with the reading of the book. I will show you the books, which are, this is the Italian, and this is the English version. There are a lot. They are both very beautiful editions. So please, Sinéad.
Good evening, everybody. Buonasera, and welcome to this very special conversation with Paola Peretti. Just before we start, a few words of introduction to Paola. She lives in the province of Verona and studied journalism and publishing. And she later attended the Palomar School of Creative Writing in Rovigo. She's affected by a condition which imposes on her sight, this Stargardt disease. And this book, The Distance Between Me and the Cherry Tree, is her first novel and is, I think, inspired by that condition. It was published in English by Hotkey Books and translated by Denise Moore. And she's just told me that this book has been published in no less than 24 languages. Congratulations, Paola, e benvenuta. You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you here. I'm talking to you from London, from the London Book Fair, where your books have been promoted and translated and ultimately published right across the world. So it's a great pleasure to have you here. And just before we begin, I wanted to ask you, could you tell us, what's the story of this book? What's it about? We know it's about Stargardt's disease, but it's about a lot more than that, isn't it?
Yes, it is. First of all, I want to say to you and to everyone, thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here with you this evening. My book is about Mafalda's story. Mafalda is a very young girl, a 9-year-old girl, and she suffers from this disease called Stargardt disease. And she is a part of my soul because I suffer from this disease. But the book is not only about the problems. I wanted to give a message of courage, of hope to every person, every people who has problems. And no one can say that life is perfect, that his life is perfect, great. Everyone has problems in love, in a job, in the family. So we have to try to live our life with the instruments that we have. And my father tried to do exactly this thing. She knows that in a few months she will lose completely her sight. And she starts to write a list of things that she can do with her instruments. And as time passes, with the lost vision, she really loves to climb on the cherry tree in the garden of the school. and this tree is a sort of refuge for her. She will have to decide if stay on this tree or jump down and face with real life.
Why did you pick a cherry tree?
I had a beloved cherry tree in my parents' garden. And when I was a very little girl, as Mafalda, I can remember that in summer afternoons, I used to climb this tree with my cat called Mikey and with a book. So it is a beautiful memory for me and for Mafalda too. It is a place of memories, the memory of her grandmother, and it is also a place of imagination, of expectation for the future. So it is a great symbol to me. I wanted that Mafalda elevate herself on this tree because I also love a lot of feminist authors as the Danish Kari Michaelis and Astrid Lindgren. The girls has to go hide to escape from default roles.
And of course, traditionally, climbing a tree is a male activity. Young boys climb trees, not little girls.
Why not?
Exactly. The subject matter of the book is quite sensitive and quite dark, potentially. What were the challenges when you grappled with the subject, when you started to write about a little girl who's going blind? How did you approach that, and how was it difficult? Because I'm sure it was very difficult.
Yeah, it's been very difficult because since I was 30 years old, I didn't really face with my main issue of my life, the disease. So I was in pain. And in every chapter, I used to ask to Mafalda, are you ready for what is going to happen to you in the next page? And I was asking it to me, to myself. It's been hard, but also I felt very, very free when I finished the book.
So the trauma of knowing that you were going blind is reflected in the trauma that Mafalda experiences.
Absolutely, yeah. I decided to finish the book in a very deep crisis of my life. I was 30. I was going blind. My last work contract was over. So it's been the worst period of my life, but it's also been the luckiest one because crisis makes you grow up and be stronger than before. So in that moment, I found the courage to face until the end with this problem and to do it until the end.
So writing the book for you was an act of resilience. It was an act of showing that you yourself could overcome this problem, that you were stronger than the problem.
Absolutely. Writing this book, I recognize my strength. And I hope that everyone else could recognize in this situation. As I told you before, everyone has a sort of problem in his life, and we only have to be able to ask help and to recognize ourselves for what we are and live with the instrument that nature gave us. We can't expect to be perfect. We have to do everything with our instrument.
I have a friend who says to me, you just have to be your perfect self. So I think that's what Mafalda is being told by the character in the school who takes care of her, the bidona, the caretaker. Tell us about Elena and why she's important in the book.
Oh, maybe you mean Estella?
Stella, sorry, yes.
Oh, no, no problem. Estella is a janitory. I think the right word is janitory.
Caretaker, yeah.
A school operator. And she is a woman who came from very far, from Romania. And she's the adult help I gave to Mafalda. She's a very, yeah, she's a very strong woman, and I've been very inspired by the stories of some mothers I came across during my life. I was an Italian language teacher for foreign children, and they had very hard stories, and their mothers too. So Estella is a mixing of these mothers and someone who I know in my family, one of my sisters and my mother, very strong women with a strong personality in a positive way and in a negative way, but they are very honest, and honesty is one of the value I want to talk about with my novels.
Why is she so important to Mafalda?
Estella is very important to Mafalda because she is honest with her. She tries to prepare Mafalda to real life. And she's a true friend, I think, for her. She's very important also because Mafalda and Estella can recognize themselves through their sufferances. Estella is a suffering woman because she had to leave her native place, Romania. She has to learn a new language, to live in Italy, to work, and she has to face with cancer. So she and Mafalda can help each other.
They have a lot in common, even though they are from different countries, have different languages, are different ages, but they are united in suffering and the need for courage, I suppose.
Yes, of course, it is it. Estella is also a very strong woman in maybe also in an ancient way. She loved to tell Mafalda tales about Amazons. About this.
The way you chose an Amazonian woman as an inspiration for the stories that Estella tells Mafalda, because of course she ends up losing a breast, and the Amazonian women lose the breast in order to hold the arrow up to their chests, and that section was so beautifully done. It was such a clever idea. There's a scene after Estella has a mastectomy, which I thought was very interesting. Can you tell us about that? When she comes back to work and the breast is missing, and she gives a hug to Mafalda. Why did you go into that detail?
I'm not sure I've understood the question, sorry.
So there's a scene in the novel where Estella comes back. She's been in hospital, she's back at work, and she has lost the breast. She's being treated for cancer. And she gives Mafalda a big hug, un abbraccio. And she talks to Mafalda about the fact Mafalda realizes the breast is missing. And she reassures Mafalda and explains to her, or it gets her to touch the breast or to touch where the breast is missing. Why did you write that?
Because I think that love is stronger than every word. And with this young Estella explained to Mafalda what is happening to her, and Mafalda also hears the beat of the heart of Stella in this way. And with this simple action, Stella can explain to Mafalda everything without a lot of words.
So it's to communicate a great deal with one act of love, I suppose. But I think there's also something else, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but love overcomes the fear of disability, because initially Mafalda is afraid to touch Estella, and Estella makes her touch it, and suddenly she's strong enough, she hears the heart beating, she realizes that Estella and she love each other, Estella is a good force in her life, and that the disability doesn't matter, the loss of the breast is irrelevant. Is that right?
Yes, of course, I agree with you. Estella is a very physical person, and yes, sometimes, no, often we are in fear with touching the disability. Yeah, of course. But Estella makes Mafalda understand that she can touch the other person, the other people. It is not a wrong thing if you do it with love, with kindness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Another character that I really loved was Filippo. Tell us a little bit about Filippo.
Okay. Filippo is a sort of bad boy because he is very strong too. Maybe in a negative way from the point of view of teachers, of parents, but he is too a person who is suffering for the situation between his parents. So he and Mafalda have a great friendship after a beginning very very difficult, very hard. Then they become friends because they are little people in sufferance. So they become friends also through music. Mafalda really like music, and Filippo plays the piano, and she is very moved for the way in which Filippo plays.
Well, we might listen to a little piece from the book that refers precisely to that scene. Marco, would you mind reading it in Italian?
Yes, of course. First of all, I would say that this book is very beautiful, written in a very fresh style, seen from a point of view of a girl. So you will hear like Paola achieved such a very beautiful style. Al teatro della scuola di musica oggi danno il saggio di metà anno e sono venuta a sentire mio cugino Andrea e i suoi allievi di chitarra. A me la musica piace parecchio, sarà perché non si vede niente? La mamma voleva che io imparassi a suonare uno strumento, ma io non ho mai voluto, soprattutto da quando mi è venuta la nebbiolina negli occhi, perché non riesco a leggere le note. Per me sono formiche ferme sopra una riga nera. Ascoltare però mi piace. Quando spengono le luci del teatro chiudo gli occhi e le canzoni delle chitarre, dei violini e dei pianoforti mi vengono incontro proprio sulla pelle e mi fanno sentire come quando si cammina lenti lenti sul bagnasciuga d'estate verso le 5 del pomeriggio, che non può succedere niente di male. C'è quel bambino che viene a chiacchierare con te nel cortile. La mamma sta indicando un punto sul palco. Mi raddrizzo nella poltrona cercando di vedere un po' meglio. Chi? Dove? Quello con la bicicletta da donna. È nel gruppo dei piccoli pianisti. Filippo. Nei piccoli pianisti. No, non può essere lui. Mamma deve avere la nebbiolina come me in questo momento. Applaudiamo e il concerto inizia. Prima cantano i bambini dell'asilo che hanno fatto il corso di coro. Poi suonano quelli del violino, che strazio. Eccolo, è lui. Come hai detto che si chiama? Vedo una persona che cammina sul palco, si ferma un momento al centro, sotto la luce grande, e poi si siede a un grosso pianoforte nero. Filippo. Ah, sì, ce l'aveva anche scritto sulla giacca. Allora è proprio lui. Nella sala cala il silenzio e Filippo comincia a suonare. Mi sa che è una canzone difficile perché dura tanto e vorrei poter vedere come si muovono le sue mani mentre questa musica bellissima mi entra nella testa. Mi prende per mano e mi dice di fare una corsa con lei, come se fosse una mia amica. E io corro su una tastiera lunghissima che diventa una spiaggia e ogni nota è un'onda e io ci salto sopra in mezzo e divento un delfino libero. La musica muove tutto il mare, gli fa fare quello che vuole. E dentro questo mare di gocce scintillanti lo vedo. Vedo il mio sottomarino, quello che avrei voluto guidare da piccola, quando mi chiedevano che lavoro volevo fare da grande. Quando apro gli occhi, ha riempito anche tutta la sala fino al soffitto, di coloratissimi fiori sottomarini e galleggianti. Poi il suono scende come la voce del Signore che legge i libri nel mio lettore, a gocce limpidissime, e alla fine diventa piccola e azzurra, una lacrima sulla mia faccia, che cade giù e mi bagna il colletto del vestito. Quando Filippo smette di suonare, si sente un silenzio grande. Si sente proprio. Poi tutti si mettono a battere le mani talmente forte che le poltroncine tremano. Filippo non viene a fare l'inchino sul bordo del palco, va via subito, anche se qualcuno sta chiedendo il bis. Al suo posto entrano gli allievi delle medie con le loro chitarre e Andrea li fa sistemare sul palco. Ma io ormai ho nella testa solo quella melodia e non so essere più stupita perché l'ha suonata Filippo o perché al mondo c'è una cosa così bella che fa perfino piangere.
The midterm recital is on at the music school today, and I've come to hear Cousin Andrea and his guitar students play. I love music. Maybe it's because there's nothing to see. Mum wanted me to learn to play an instrument, but I always said no, especially since I've had the mist in my eyes, because I can't read the notes. They look like ants sitting on a black line to me. I like listening to music, though. When the lights go down in the theatre, I close my eyes, and the guitar, the violin, and piano music reach out to me, making my skin tingle, like walking really slowly on wet sand in the summer at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when nothing bad can happen. There's that boy who comes to talk to you in the courtyard. Mum's pointing to the stage. I sit up straight in my chair and try to get a better view. Who? Where is he? The boy on the girl's bike. He's in the group of young pianists. Filippo? Young pianists? Can't be him. Mum must have my mist in her eyes now too. We clap and the concert starts. The nursery children sing first, the ones from the choir course. Then the violinists play. Oh, it's torture. There he is, that's him. What did you say his name is? I see someone walk onto the stage, stop for a second in the center under the big light, then sit down at the huge black piano. Filippo. Oh yes, it's written on his jacket as well. So it is him. A hush falls in the theatre and Filippo begins to play. It must be a difficult song because it lasts a long time. I wish I could see his fingers because the beautiful music they're making is filling my head, taking my hand and telling me to run with it, the way a friend would. So I run along a never-ending keyboard that turns into a beach, and the notes are waves. I jump over them, into them, like a dolphin now, free. The music commands the sea, making it move at its will. When I open my eyes, it has filled the whole room as far as the ceiling, with rainbow-coloured flowers under the water and floating on the surface. Then the music descends in limpid droplets, like the voice of the man reading the books on my MP3 player, before becoming tiny and blue, a single tear on my face falling, wetting the collar of my dress. The silence when Filippo stops playing is immense. You can hear it. Then everyone starts to clap so loudly the chairs vibrate. Filippo doesn't come to the edge of the stage to take a bow. He goes straight off, even though some people in the audience shout for an encore. Middle school students with guitars come on after him, and Andrea gets them into position on the stage. The music Filippo played is stuck in my head, though, and I don't know if I'm more surprised he played it or that there's something so beautiful in the world it can make you cry. Thank you, Paola. That's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. It's been great to listen to you reading my book in Italian and in English. You have beautiful voices. It's been very intense to me.
Well, without your words, we couldn't read it, Paola. Tell me a little bit about Filippo. I was fascinated by the fact that a little bit later in the story, he cries. And boys don't usually cry. Young boys are not made to cry in books. Why does he cry, and why did you want him to cry?
He cries in the moment in which he realizes that his parents don't take care each other, and to him, he realized that he is in a very bad situation, and he give to himself the permission of cry. She finds the courage to cry, and I wanted him to cry because, as you told us, boys usually don't cry in novels, and in life maybe they are educated in this way, but they are
they're not given permission to cry.
yes, in that moment he gives himself the permission. Because crying is not a sign of being weak. It's a sign of sensitivity and of a great affectivity. And also boys can be sensitive, not only girls.
Absolutely. And I think also perhaps in the novel, the fact that he cries in front of Mafalda is an act of trust. He's not afraid to cry in front of her because their relationship has deepened sufficiently for him to let his public mask down.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, he's naked in front of Mafalda. Yeah, without masks. I really wanted this scene in the book.
It's a lovely scene, and I think you also write her reaction very well, because she almost instinctively knows that no words are necessary.
Yes, of course. And she also understands in that moment that she and Filippo are similar. Has a lot of they have a lot of things in common. She's a female and he's a male, but there is no differences in their hearts, in their souls.
And suffering isn't always visible. You know, that you can appear very tough on the outside and have a broken heart inside.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about how the book is received. I know you've done hundreds of workshops and readings. How do boys and girls react to the story? Do
they react very, very well, in a very good way. I used to go to schools and speaking with the students, and I used to give to them little glasses with a sort of macula with spots on the glasses, and they try it, and they are very sad for me. Lovely. But they can understand a lot of things when we are together for 1 or 2 hours. I think that children are very sensitive about disability. And in the schools, we have to talk about disability, because little people has a great soul for this argument, I think.
So you want to sensitize them to disability and to develop empathy?
Yes, of course, to develop empathy and kindness and inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
I think the word is this. I think that every meeting with students, with little students, is a great opportunity to talk about social things. And also novels are great opportunity to our authors to talk about these themes.
And to treat them, to deal with them. I was asking you there a moment ago if you feel that boys and girls respond differently to the book. We live in quite a gendered society, and boys are not allowed to cry. Even nowadays, boys are encouraged to wear blue and girls to wear pink, certainly when they're very small. Do you find that boys and girls respond in a different way to the book, or?
Yes, and I that my book was a female book, but a lot of boys loved this book, and I was very surprised. Maybe for the cat, maybe for Filippo, but it is not a book only for girls. They really love the story of Mafalda, also even if they are boys. It is a very strange thing, but I think it depends to an evolution of time. Maybe the things are changing.
I think they are, and for the better. I think so, definitely. Going back to the book and how you structured it, you have some very interesting devices for the different chapters. When did that idea come to you? Because there is a very clear structure, isn't there?
Yeah, every chapter starts with the distance that Mafalda can. I can say misurare.
Measure. Yeah. Measure. Yeah.
Measure. Oh yeah, measure. She can say she can see the tree from a distance, and then while she loses her sight, she can see less the tree. And every chapter starts with
A measurement.
the meters.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the measure.
That she can see. The distance between me and the cherry tree. See.
Yes, of course. I've been inspired by myself because it is a thing that I did in my life.
It's very clever because it marks a progression in the plot. Of course, it marks a progression or a deterioration in Mafalda's sight, but it also, each chapter moves it along a little bit. Things have got worse or better, depending on or both in a sense. So worse sight, more resignation and control of the reality that Mafalda is facing. Is that right?
Yes, it is right. She cannot control what is going to happen to her tomorrow, and the distance become a very very small from the place she can see the tree and the tree. And at the end there's the darkness, and she is in the same place of the tree, and she can say it. She can see it. I think it is a sort of a sort of travel, a journey
Yes.
that she makes in searching of her identity too, and in searching her strength.
Yeah, I think it would be fair to say that it is a rites of passage novel, that she is a much older and wiser person at the end than she is at the beginning. And that's very attractive. So even though it's a very dark novel in some ways, it's also a novel with huge joy and resilience in the end. I think I could see it giving great courage and inspiration to everybody, whether they have a disability or not. It's a lovely book, isn't it?
Oh, thank you so much. I hope it. My purpose, my main purpose in writing books is this one, giving to people a reason to to go on and to recognize to everyone's problem.
What were your problems when you were writing the book? What was, apart from your own physical disability, in terms of the structure of the book and the language of the book, what were you trying to avoid?
In my experience, the creative process starts from a real life story. I've always been a girl who loved listening to to the people's tales, and the difficult things are to transpose these ideas on the terrible white paper. So I really like to draw an image, a picture of my main character, and all around this picture, I like to write all his or her habits. I like to imagine the dreams, the preferences about clothes, food, books, and how is composed his or her family, the group of friends. And then the voices of these characters speaks in my mind, and I have to listen to them. And then I start building lineup of the chapters. And then a short synopsis, 10 or 15 lines, to get which are the main points to me to talk about in that specific novel. I am very happy about what I write at the beginning. I am never happy about all the rest. So for months and months, I remove and I throw away and I restart writing. I arrive to a crossroads. There are two ways. One is madness, and the second one is to tell me, Paola, the book is finished. Be happy. And I usually prefer the second one.
Sounds like a better option, definitely. Acceptance. You said you spent months and months sort of revising and throwing away and adding. Do you do that chapter by chapter, or do you write a full draft and then go back?
I think I prefer finish one chapter and then go on, or come back. I do not like to leave a chapter without an end. I usually move in this way.
So chapter by chapter,
yeah,
build a profile. And do you know where you're going to end? Do you know what the conclusion will be?
I usually don't know until the end what will be the real end of the story. Yeah, I don't know why I don't think about the end. In Mafalda's case, there is a sort of happy ending. but also a not very happy ending. I tried to balance the two things because I think that also a very young public of readers
Yes.
can face with no happy ending to prepare to real life.
So it could have been very, very dark. And you have that final chapter, which shows that life goes on. That, yes, there's been a lot of suffering. You may have lost a character in the course of the book, but you also have Mafalda, who is stronger and happier than before in many ways.
Yeah, yes, of course. And I know that I talk about a very dramatic theme in this novel, and I also wanted to try to make lighter
Yes,
the
contrast.
style,
Yeah.
the style and the language. For this reason, I've chosen the voice of a so young girl and some moment of I think nice moment to have a smile.
Yeah, there are moments of great joy. I mean, when they're all gathered around having pizza in Filippo's mother's house, it's lovely. There's great. And then when they go on, I think it's on the skiing holiday, and then and Filippo and Mafalda are together, and they win the competition, and they slay.
Yeah.
It's lovely. It provides great contrast to the much darker moments. Tell me about the language. I mean, the language, and I heard it in Italian, and Marco read so beautifully earlier. It's very warm and visual.
Yes, of course.
How did you choose the words and the tone and the rhythm? Because that can't have been easy.
No, it's not been easy, but I was very inspired by my leader students. I took a lot of words and expression and sentences from them. When I was a teacher, I met a lot of children from all over the world, from Brazil, from China, from Romania, from Nigeria, Senegal, India, Russia, and they was absolutely wonderful to me, also in speaking with me, and a lot of the word of Mafalda are their words.
So they're absolutely true because they're the words of children of that age.
Yeah, it's not easy to reproduce it, but I've been a teacher for a so long time, and maybe I am too a little girl inside. I try to preserve this part of me.
Did you find it difficult to write the adults by contrast? I mean, the parents play a role in the novel. They're not hugely central, but they're important nonetheless. Were they harder to write than Mafalda?
It's been very hard to to write about adults. Yeah, maybe because I've been a daughter for a, for a very long time until I was 30. I was a very very little girl. So it's been harder to write about
The parents.
adults. Yeah, yes, of course. I am not a parent, so maybe also for this reason.
And which parent was the easier to write? Was the mother easier or the father?
It's been I don't know. I have a great relationship with my father. Uh, I know him very well, and in the second book of this series, Filippo, Me and the Cherry Tree, Mafalda has to face with her father's problems. He lost his job, so he's in a very deep depression. But I am a woman, so maybe it's been easier to me to write about the mother.
Well, they're both very real people. They're both perfectly imaginable. So you manage with both. So that's interesting. I have one more question to ask you, and then I'm going to invite Marco and indeed the audience to send some questions. Marco has some questions ready and that he wants to ask you, and perhaps the audience would like to submit a few questions through the chat function. My last question relates to my own work and is very close to my heart. It's a question about your relationship with your translators. You've been published in 24 languages, so you must have had lots of contact with translators. How does that work for you?
It's a great experience to talk with my translators, and I often chat with Denise Moore. She's a very nice person, and I often chat also with the Chinese one. And yeah, she used to ask me something about a sentence, but at the end I told her I can check what are you translating, so you can write what you want. And also with the illustrators, I have a greater relationship, maybe mostly with the Greek one, that's called Demetra, and she's a very great illustrator, and she had drawn Mafalda with curly hair, and I am a girl with curly hair. It was perfect.
Excellent. I was struck by some of the sort of Italian specificities in the text. So there's some very specific things like the crodino, the drink.
Yeah.
Did that come up in your conversations with your translators? Did they ask about this?
Not about the crodino. Maybe it is famous on all over the world. I don't know.
I was in Denise Moore's translation. She doesn't translate the word. She uses the word crodino, and I thought that was interesting. In the context, it's understandable, but it's a choice. She could have used another word. She could have talked about a fizzy drink or a soft drink or many other ways of doing it, but she chose to use crodino, and the role of the caretaker, the janitor, you use the word janitor yourself, which is common in America. I think in Ireland and Britain, we would say caretaker. It is not necessarily common to all schools, to all school experiences. So that's an interesting one as well. Not all schools have a caretaker. So it needs to be a little bit contextualized for a reader outside of Italy and France, perhaps. Marco, do you have a question? I think you have a couple of questions for Paola.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Sinéad. Actually, I have point out some suggestions about the style that Paola uses, because it's a very, as I said before, it's a very fresh and beautiful style seen from a 9-year-old girl. So the first remark is that probably in the English translation you cannot see it, because they translate. Speaking about translation, the translator translated into English some words that in Italian they are written in a very funny way. I mean, the English or the foreign words that Mafalda knows herself, they are written in the way that a young girl would write in Italian. I mean, for example, Beatles, the musical group, is not written Beatles like in English, but it's written Bitols. I mean, like a young girl in Italy would write it. Or for example, brioche, it's written Briosc. I mean, it's a very nice way of reading this book, because you can understand that it's not an adult that tells the story, but they are really the eyes of Mafalda. They are telling the story. I would like to ask Paola, how did you find this this way of writing? I mean, it was someone that told you to do it this way, or do you find it like natural to write like a young girl would write?
Thank you. I thought to myself in a natural way. I've chosen to write these words in this way. I imagined that it was more realistic, more authentic, because children sometimes make these mistakes. And speaking and also writing. Mafalda is very young, so she cannot know the orthography of every word in English. Yeah, I thought it was more realistic and nice in a sort of way.
Yes, and did the other translator translated the same like in English, I mean the right word, or did they keep the Italian style?
Sometimes they kept my my choices. And in other countries, I don't know. I can't know in Japan or in the Greek language. I don't know.
Of course. And another question. The cherry tree refers also to a novel of a very known writer in Italy, which is Italo Calvino. And the whole book is a quote also of one of his novels, which is Il Barone Rampante, The Baron in the Trees. Some of the characters also relate to the characters of the book of Calvino, for example, Cosimo and your cat, for example. I would like to ask you the inspiration of this Barone Rampante came after or before that you started writing, and why? Apart of that you have the cherry tree in your home or in your school.
Okay. It came before, because The Baron in the Trees is one of my favorite novels of Italian literature and in general. It was one of my father's favorite novels, and it is the favorite book of Mafalda's dad. I was thinking about giving to her a sort of magic help, and Cosimo was the character, the perfect character to give her this sort of magic help, because he doesn't exist. He's a fiction character, and she's always asking to him help, but he can't answer her. It was a particular relationship with literature and also with their affairs.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the last remark is that even if it has been translated into 24, 26 languages, me as an Italian, I feel this book very Italian in itself. I mean, as Sinéad said, there are so many things that reminds me to Italy, from childhood, and the things and the small things that you can say and you can see in Italy. So it's very interesting to have this book translated into that many languages, but this book is itself very Italian. So I mean, it's a very nice it's a very nice book. I will would ask someone else to make questions, probably from the audience.
Question here from Francesca Gallerati, and it follows on beautifully from what you've just been talking about. And it says, could you ask Paola, who are her favorite writers?
Sorry, my favorite?
Writers. Who do you love to read?
My favorite authors?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I read a lot of literature from all over the world, but I prefer Philip Roth. I really love Charles Dickens and Jack London. I like feminist authors, Karen Michaelis and Astrid Lindgren, and our Italian one, Bianca Pizzorno. I love Calvino and all the authors linked to resistance in Italy, Fenoglio, for example. I just met Sally Rooney too.
Oh, very good.
Wow, she's so young, but she has a great psychological analysis on his characters. I think these are my favorites.
I think you're busy. That's a lot. Can I ask you? You mentioned earlier that Mafalda appears in another book. Are you writing sequels?
Yeah, I've written the sequel, the number 2, Filippo, Me and the Cherry Tree, that's going to be published in August the 4th this year in
2022.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Filippo, Me and the Cherry Tree.
Filippo, Me and the Cherry Tree. Yeah. Now Mafalda is 13 years old, and she has to face with new problems, the teenagers' problems.
Goodness. Oh, I mean, that's great news. Congratulations. I think that all that remains for me to do is to thank you so much for giving us your time and for talking about the first book in the series, The Distance Between Me and the Cherry Tree. And to say that we very much look forward to reading Filippo, Me and the Cherry Tree. Thank you to the Italian Cultural Institute and for hosting the event. And thank you, the audience, for your attention and your questions. Grazie mille Paola e buona serata.
Grazie a te Sinéad, grazie Paola, grazie a tutti.
Grazie a tutti.